welcome back to the channel, everyone. MJ Scale Modeling. I'm Mike, as you know. Just wanted to go over a couple things really quick here before we get started. Want to give a shout out to my brother-in-law Philip for the new intro that you guys saw at the beginning of the video. He whipped that up for me, and probably in his sleep because he's a genius. But I just want to give him a big shout out and say thanks a lot, man, for doing that. So, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and start working on our bridge diorama some more. And one thing we're gonna do is we are going to remove the ice that I put down. Yes, I already put some ice down, and I changed my mind. We're gonna remove the ice that we put down because I don't like the way it looks. I could alter it, and I could use some of my wet waves to kind of make it look better, but I'm panicking and falling back, so I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna remove it because I've already gone this far, and I don't want to risk the diorama. Yeah, I'm a coward, I know. But heck, that's what this channel is all about. This is learning as we go along. This is real-time scale modeling. We're making mistakes. We're learning. We're backtracking. We're learning new things. It's what this is all about, and that's why I made this channel. So so far, I guess that's a good thing that we're seeing this stuff happen real time. So we're gonna go ahead and get that ice removed, and hopefully it will come off pretty easily because I did use the Woodland Scenics paint on adhesive. It's supposed to be water soluble, but we'll see how water soluble it really is. So we're gonna go ahead and get to work on that, and then get back to square one, and we'll start working on it some more. Now that our base is all cleaned up, we're gonna add a little something still to it. We're gonna put a little bit of snow on the rocks that are underneath the bridge. And we're gonna do that using our scenic cement and our snow micro balloons. I do still use an old brush that I don't use anymore for this type of work, just because, you know, taking a good craft brush and filling it with AK micro balloons probably isn't very good for it. So I'd recommend using an old brush still, just for safety's sake. Even though this stuff is water soluble and it comes off pretty easily, I mean, just use an old brush. Okay, now that we're done with our base for the most part, we are going to start working on some troops, and I'm going to show you guys how I make a wet palette to do that. So things you're going to need, a little container like this. I got this from the hardware store. It had a couple little shorty screws in it that I needed for a project, and when I was done with it, I just kind of kept the container, and it works really good. A pair of scissors you're going to need, even maybe just your normal knife, piece of paper towel, and a piece of parchment paper as well. And also a little bit of water. This is not vodka, this is water. And we will show you how you go ahead and do that. And another thing, I mean, you can always use your faucet and stuff like that too, or a little pipette out of a glass of water or something, or just dump the water in. But we'll show you how we do that here right now. So what you're going to want to do is take a piece of paper towel and you're going to want to cut it about twice the length of your container that you are going to be using. And don't be afraid if it's a little off or whatever. You can always trim it with a pair of scissors afterwards. Next, you're going to be doing the same thing, but with the parchment paper, and you're just going to cut one single square out of that. You're not going to be doubling it over or anything like that. And it's the same as the paper towel. Don't be afraid if it comes out a little bit wrong or anything like that. You can always trim it up with your scissors afterwards to make it fit better. Then when you got your parchment cut to size, you're going to add some water into your container. And you're just gonna cover the paper towel so it's pleasantly saturated. You don't want to fill it like it's full of water, just pleasantly saturated. Then just lay your parchment paper right in on top of the wet paper towel. Now I like to use XF15 flat flesh and XF9 hull red. I feel that the XF15 is way too peachy, way too flat fleshy, so I like to add in a little bit of the XF9 hull red to give it a little bit more of a rosy color, and I think that in combination works really good, and that's what I'm doing right here, just adding a little bit of hull red to it before I put it on the skin of the figure. And you'll notice as you're working using the wet palette, why we use the wet palette is it really keeps the acrylic paints like Tamiya and other stuff that dry so quickly. It really keeps them alive, and you can use them a lot longer, especially when you're working on figures. I mean, you're using such a little amount, it'll dry almost instantly. So the wet palette is almost an essential when you're working on figures, in my opinion. And to paint my troops, I actually use caps from bottles of like Gatorade or something like that, or juice. And I used to glue their feet to it, but a friend of mine from my club, the Upper Peninsula Scale Modelers, suggested double-sided tape, and it works a lot better. So that's how I kind of use when I have a lot of guys. I use these little caps. One thing I'm really not good at, but I'm working on it, is painting eyes on troops. I mean, this guy kind of looks like the thing you were afraid of in your closet when you were a little kid, but I mean, it's passable. And sometimes the XF2 you use for the eyes is a little bit harsh, so you can always add in a little bit of something to kind of dull the white a little bit so it's not so harsh. And all the paints I use for these soldiers is Tamiya paints. Pretty standard Tamiya paints. For the coat I used XF59, which is just desert yellow. And the collar was just normal XF2 white, and I just threw a little bit of sand color in there just to make it a little more beigey. And then just NATO black for the pants and boots, and just XF64 red-brown for the leather goods, the belts, and the pistol holsters and stuff like that. And when you're working on eyes, don't be discouraged if you smear it a little bit. I mean, I smear it all the time, and I didn't show you the 3 times I did it doing this guy. But you can always go back over and just kind of paint around the eye, touch it up a little bit, make it look right. It's, you know, that's the great thing about this, is all your problems for the most part can be fixed. And this part is always the most stressful for me, trying to get that little black dot on the eyes to make the pupil without making them look like a demon with black eyes. So I get pretty excited when I get it on there and I don't have to repaint his eyes. We got the last of our troops with their eyes and their heads painted and stuff like that. One of our troops still has to have his TA50 done, like his helmet and his pistol holster. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna paint up those. These are already primed before I started the channel, so I'm gonna go ahead and just hand paint those right now. For the holster, I like to use the XF64 red brown. That seems like it works pretty good. And for the black helmet and stuff, I just like to use my go-to. My favorite is always the XF69, the NATO black. That seems like it works really good for just about anything. So I use NATO black a lot. I mean, I love it. I put it in my coffee, for God's sake. I love it so much. So we're gonna go ahead and start working on that right now. My wife just told me, don't put NATO black in your coffee. She said I have to let, somebody's gonna do it and I'm gonna get sued. Don't put NATO black in your coffee. That was a joke. And just a little public service announcement. The Leatherman I used to get the heads off my little painting pikes here, that's the second one I found in 2021. So don't set your Leathermans on the back of your cars, because if you do, I will find them while I'm working. So just a little public service announcement for everyone. Right here, I'm just shaving the bottom of the head a little bit. When I put them on my little head pikes there, I heat them up and it kind of melts, makes a little bit of a bulge on there I gotta shave off. And like I'm doing here, always check the fit before you just start slapping glue on it, because if it's something needs to get shaved or it doesn't fit right, it's gonna be a mess if it's covered in glue. And since I had my wet palette loaded up with paint, I just went over some of my troops and checked their holsters and stuff and their helmets to make sure there was no spots that needed a little touching up. And these stupid tanker helmets do not fit, especially with this guy with he's kind of got his head leaning back, and it was a pain in the butt trying to get that on there to stay on properly, so I had to kind of finagle it a little bit and use the side flaps to kind of cover the big void that was under his helmet. Thanks for sticking with me to the end again, everyone. We got a lot done on the diorama in this episode. We got the base all cleaned up, we got some snow on our rocks, we got our troops pretty much all painted up and ready to put the diorama. So on the next episode, we're going to be doing a lot of work on the tank. But that'll be on the next episode for this diorama. But I do like to keep my mind a little fresh, so I do jump between dioramas or projects. So I may be starting another project for the next episode. But we'll see, and I'm not going to say what it is because it's something a little new for me. So, but the hint is that it's not 1/35th armor. So that's your hint. But it's going to be pretty fun, I think. So, and I think a lot of people out there watching this will have a lot of tips for me because it's not really something I've done before. So, so stay tuned for the next episode, and thanks again for stopping by.